Hi, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Sue, and today we're going to make an all stovetop dinner. Not only will it be all on the stovetop, it'll be all vegetarian, and it will be quick and easy. It's going to be the kind of dinner that you can just throw together at the last minute. You don't have to do a lot of preparation. So why don't you stay tuned? Just a reminder, today's recipe and all the recipes that we've used on this show so far can be found on our website, Tweeton.com. Please look us up. You'll find our recipes. You'll find a way to order tapes of these cooking lessons. You'll find a way to email me, and I do love hearing from you. And you'll find links to other Greek sites that will give you more insight into the Greek culture, and of course, a lot more recipes. For tonight's stovetop supper, we're going to feature Fasolakia. This is just a wonderful, tasty green bean stew, stewed in tomato sauce. It's really delicious, it's easy to make, and it's one of those things that if you make it in the morning and you put it in the refrigerator and then reheat it later in the evening, it tastes even better. It tastes really good the next day. You can make it anytime, and it's absolutely delicious. Well, to make it, you need the following ingredients. You need 2 pounds of string beans. Now, I want to make this as easy as possible for myself, so I got almost a 2-pound bag of frozen cut green beans, and this is just perfect. Of course, you need olive oil. You need 2 onions, 2 small to medium onions, some garlic, anywhere from 2 to 4 cloves of garlic. You need 2 potatoes, 2 carrots. You need an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. And then for flavoring, you need some mint. And this is fresh mint from my garden, but you could substitute dried mint. And you absolutely have to have fresh parsley, anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 cup of chopped fresh parsley. Now when you put all these ingredients together and cook them over the stove, you will have a wonderful, tasty green bean dish. And it will be a really interesting alternative at holiday time to the normal, usual cream soup green bean casserole. Try this. You'll fall in love with it. Well, the first thing to get this Fasolakia stew together is to chop some onions. And this is kind of neat. Because it's a stew, you can chop them or cut them up any way you want. You can chop them very, very finely. You can kind of chunk them up. Really doesn't matter. But you do need to get your 2 onions chopped. Today, I'm really not in the mood to suffer through finely chopping onions, so this is going to be a pretty rough chop. These are about 1/3 of an inch in slices, and I'm just going to cut them in thirds like this, so it'll be very stew-like. The nice thing about this is then it goes really fast. And this is going to make a large quantity, so I want to put everything into one of these Dutch ovens. A nice size pan, something that you might make a regular stew in. As with so many other dishes, I want to get my onions started cooking. So I'm going to saute them in anywhere from 1/2 cup to 3/4 of a cup of good quality olive oil. And the olive oil is not just an agent for sauteing, it's going to add some flavor. So that's why we do use this quantity. But bring the heat up and start sauteing these. These do not need to brown, but they certainly do need to cook and soften up a bit. So that'll take a few minutes. And while the onions are cooking, I'll give my attention to all the other vegetables that go into the stew. One nice thing about using frozen string beans is I really don't have to do a thing for them other than just open up this plastic bag. However, if I were using fresh string beans, I would want 2 pounds and I'd have to trim the ends and cut them into about 3-inch lengths. But I do have to do something with the carrots. I'm going to peel them and slice them thinly. I've already washed them, so all I need to do right now is just peel them. And I suppose if you were in a hurry and you didn't care, you wouldn't even bother peeling them. And I'm going to tell you a secret. That's exactly what I would do. I would just use them unpeeled, but I'm trying to impress you, so I'm going to peel them today. I think if you leave the peel on, you get more vitamins. Isn't that a good excuse for being just a little bit lazy? And now it's just a matter of slicing them thinly. Of course, I'll take off the ends. Just nice little carrot rounds for the stew. Almost done with the carrots. Okay, so now I have a nice little pile of carrots ready to go. And I'm going to give the onions a stir. This is when I'm most tempted. If you talk to my mother, she could tell you tales of her cooking when I was growing up. She always started off with at least one chopped onion being sauteed in either butter or olive oil. But by the time she was done and ready to add other ingredients, the onion was half gone because I was always constantly sneaking into the pan and snitching the sauteed onions. I've always loved onions and I've always loved them sauteing. So those are the two things I would snitch, the onions and then of course the dough from Kurubievis. What a combo. Oh, that last story really got to me. It was so sentimental. Not really, it was the onions. They're still very fragrant, very pungent in the air. Okay, it's on to potatoes. These potatoes have been washed, so of course they need to be peeled and then chunked up. But this is a wonderful, wonderful dish. Very tasty, and for people who just think green beans are kind of ho-hum, this will change their mind because it is so good tasting. And you could use other vegetables. If you were in the mood, you could use okra. You could probably even use green peas. As Greek people do like to have green peas in a tomato sauce base. All right, one potato's peeled. Let's go with the other one. Getting close to the end of my second potato. All done. And you want to cut these potatoes into anywhere from 1 to 2-inch chunks. You don't really have to worry. You don't need to get out your ruler and measure anything, but just make sure that they're about 1 to 2-inch chunks, nothing bigger, otherwise it'll take way too long for them to cook. But you don't want anything smaller. This is about a good size. You don't want anything too small, because then what will happen is they will just mush up and you'll have string beans in a mashed potato thing. And that's not quite what you want. Okay, so I have a nice little pile of chunky potatoes. The onions are coming along just nicely. They're getting cooked, but I'm going to put the top on just to steam them a little bit so they really are nice and soft before I add everything else. Okay, that's it for potatoes. So I have my vegetables piled up, and it's time for me to take care of my garlic. 2 to 4 cloves of garlic minced. And I'm at the tail end of this, So I think I've got 1, 2, 3 good-sized cloves, or decent-sized cloves, I should say. Just give them a pound to loosen up the skin a bit. I want to just be sure I remove this hard part at the top. Okay, so it's just a matter of trying to chop them finely. This is a stew, and you don't have to run them through the garlic press unless you really want to. This nice chopping will do just fine. Okay, that's it for my garlic. So all the vegetables are actually in place. What I need to do now is just get my herbs ready. I need to chop anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 cup parsley. And I got this out of my garden. I washed it carefully. And you know what? I'm just going to start chopping it, and I'm not going to measure, because I know one thing. More parsley is not going to hurt a thing. And I know that I have at least 1/4 cup here. Greek people do love to have parsley in their dishes, and especially anything that has vegetables. So it's good to grow parsley out in a pot in your backyard, on your patio, on your deck, or just stick it in the ground. It's something you can use all the time, and it's not just for ornamental purposes. All you want to do is just remove the little leafy part from the hard stems. And it doesn't matter if some of the more tender stems get chopped up in there. That's okay. Because this is a stew, it can be chopped roughly. It does not have to be chopped finely. You're not dusting anything with chopped parsley. So here we go. And that's one thing that's kind of different about Greek cuisine, is that they do use parsley as a vegetable. It's not just window dressing, something to just make the dish look pretty at the end. It's incorporated in many, many dishes, vegetable dishes in particular, and fish dishes. All right, that's good enough for me. And last but not least, another favorite flavoring for Greek people, mint. I'm using fresh mint, anywhere from 1 to 2 teaspoons. Now that would be dried mint. Since it's fresh mint, I could go up to 3, even 4 teaspoons. What I'm doing is I'm just tearing off some big leaves, and I'm just going to chop them up. And mint is just like parsley. I don't really think you can overdo it too much. I suppose if I put in 1/2 cup of mint, then that might be a problem, but I'm not going to get to that point. This looks like it'll be just fine. I'm going to start chopping this up, and this one I want to be a little more careful on. I do want to get it finely chopped, just because mint has a very prominent flavor, stronger flavor than parsley does, and so I want to make sure that no one's biting into a big chunk of mint leaves. And mint is another thing that's wonderful to grow in your backyard, on your deck, on your patio, in a pot. Do not stick mint in the ground, because it does just take over. It's an invasive plant. It's nice, it's great to have, but I don't think you want your entire garden taken over by mint. So keep it in a pot and you'll be okay. So there I have my 1 to 2 teaspoons of mint, and really I'm ready to go put everything together and cook it. Well, now it's time to put everything together for this wonderful stew. Look at my onions. Boy, They smell good and they look good too. They're soft and ready for the other ingredients. In goes some potatoes, parsley, mint, and garlic. Now come the rest of the potatoes and the carrots and my bag of frozen green beans. You can add the frozen green beans completely frozen right out of the freezer, or you could do what I did. I took them out while I was doing all the vegetable preparation, so they're partially thawed. And to all this, I want to add the 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. I want to add some liquid in addition to the tomato sauce. Either a cup of water or a cup of broth. If you have vegetable broth or chicken broth or even beef broth, that would be fine. If you want to keep it all vegetarian, then either water or vegetable broth. I just happen to have some chicken broth left over from dinner the night before, so I'm going to add 1 cup of chicken broth. But water or vegetable broth would be just fine too. And lastly, just about 2 teaspoons of salt and however much pepper you like. Now that's it. What you want to do is just bring this up to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer and let it cook for about an hour or until all the vegetables are completely tender. I'm just stirring everything up to get all the flavors blended. You need to make sure that not only the potato is cooked, but that the green beans are fully cooked. They should not be crisp at all. You can see the stew has come to a boil, so I'm just turning the heat down, giving it another stir, and I'm going to keep it on a simmer, a slow simmer, for about an hour. And I'll just stir it from time to time, maybe every 15 minutes. Just make sure nothing's sticking. And that's it. Now for the main dish, Macaronia me Voutyro. Macaroni with butter. But it's not just ordinary butter. It's browned butter. And believe it or not, this delicious, rich-tasting dish has only 3 ingredients. You have to have butter, that's the Voutyro. You have to have some sort of pasta, that's the Macaronia. And you need to have some sort of cheese. Now, if you put these all together, you're going to have a just delicious, delicious pasta dish that will be rich, it will be sumptuous, and it will be oh so easy. Putting this dish together will take just about as long as it takes for you to cook the macaroni you've chosen. And today I'm making bow ties, and according to the directions here, it will take 10 to 12 minutes. Now, it may take up to 15 minutes to get my butter browned. So here's a hint. This is what I really like to do when I'm making anything that has any kind of macaroni or pasta product. I actually get my water up to boiling before I do anything. All right, I've got my pot full of water, and I'm just turning the heat on to full blast, to high, and I want to bring it to a boil. Now, if I'm ready with the butter, fine, then I'll just toss the pasta in. If I'm not, I'll just take the pan off the immediate heat, but it'll still be hot and almost ready to go. Now, this pasta needs some sort of cheese to give it a little tang, a little extra flavor. If you have Parmesan cheese around, well, go ahead and use it. You need at least a half cup grated Parmesan cheese. However, if you have access to dry Voutyro, this is really traditional. And it's sold in wedges like this. And of course, you're going to need to grate it or grind it. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to get it into my food processor and get it ready for the pasta. Well, here's my chunk of cheese. And I'm just going to cut it up into slightly smaller chunks just to get it into the food processor. And then I just want to grind it up. Hold your ears. And that's just perfect. I'm just going to give the string beans a stir. It's been about 15-20 minutes. They're looking good. They're smelling pretty good too, but they're definitely not done yet. So just stir them up and cover them. Leave them alone. For the 1 pound of pasta that I'm going to be using, I need a ½ pound of butter. Now, ½ pound of butter is 2 sticks. If you're planning on making this pasta with Voutyro cheese, you might want to use just 1 stick of salted butter and 1 stick of unsalted butter. And that's what I'm going to do today. That will kind of cut down on the saltiness of the finished product. If you are concerned about salt in your diet, you might want to use just the sweet butter. If you are concerned about this amount of butter, here's something else you could do. You could brown 1 stick of butter only. Get that nice and toasty brown so you have that delicious brown butter flavor. And then add a ½ cup of very, very light olive oil. That would cut the butter amount, but you would still have some of that browned butter flavor. Now comes the part that actually requires the most patience, and that's getting the butter to a browned state. I want to have the butter over a medium to medium-high heat. I don't want it over low heat. It'll never brown. It'll take forever. But I don't want to put it on boiling high, because then it'll burn immediately. So medium-high heat to get it melted. It's not quite melted yet, but it's getting there. And then it will start bubbling. Well, the butter is now bubbling and cooking. And this is where I have to watch it. Now this butter is really cooking. And I think I'm just going to watch it, because I don't want it to burn. All right, I can tell that my butter is starting to brown. The foam is turning a light tan, and when I whisk away the foam, I see that it's brown underneath there. So what I'm going to do right now is, since the pot's going to keep some heat in it, I'm going to just take it off the heat, and it'll stay liquid, it'll stay warm. Onto the heat goes my pasta water. I see steam. Now you can either salt the water or leave it unsalted, depending on the amount of salt allowed you in your diet. In goes your pound of pasta, whatever shape you like. Get it back up to a boil and cook it as long as the package directs you. This is done. It's been 12 minutes, and I've been stirring it every few minutes just to make sure it doesn't stick too much. Now I need to take it off the stove and drain it. So I'm going to give it a shake, get rid of any excess water, but I'm not going to rinse it. If I rinse it, then the little bits of starch that are on the noodle will float away and the butter won't adhere. And that holds true for any sauce, any pasta sauce. If you're serving it immediately, don't rinse it. Okay, back into the pot. And I'm going to add my browned butter. With all this hot pasta, and the butter has not really cooled down a whole lot, it'll still be a nice warm dish. And look at that color. It is a very deep, deep brown, golden brown, but it did not burn. All I want to do right now is just kind of stir this up. To this nice buttery pasta, I want to add about 1/4 cup of the Voutyro cheese, just to give it a good flavor through and through. And lastly, I can salt and pepper this. Now I'm not going to add salt because Voutyro is always very salty. Now, is that simple or what? Well, it's dinner time, and I want you to look at how wonderful everything is. This is that wonderful, wonderful green bean stew with the green beans, parsley, mint, a little bit of tomato, some potatoes and carrots. It looks so pretty on the plate, and it's so good for you. Then, next to it, this delicious pasta. There you have it. Vegetarian, quick,